Sports bettors, are you ready? Are you ready for a faster way to win? When you bet with PointsBet, you get faster bets, faster withdrawals, and faster rewards. Experience this premium sportsbook for yourself and sign up with code BETSWEATS, BETSWEATS, to get $100 in free bets when you deposit $20. Must be present in New Jersey, Indiana, Iowa, or Illinois. Must be 21 or older. Additional T's and C's apply. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER if in New Jersey and Illinois, 1-800-9-WITH-IT if in Indiana, 1-800-BETS-OFF if in Iowa.
Odyssey now has hundreds of new exclusive music stations for you to discover your new summer soundtrack.
Get moving with worthy workouts for a cardio sesh fueled by today's top artists.
Hanging with your crew? Throw it back with Picnic Party for old school jams for your cookout.
Or sail away with Odyssey's new yacht rock station, Jugger Yacht.
There are hundreds of new exclusive stations to check out today.
For summer barbecues,
road trips,
or relaxing poolside.
For every mood, every interest, every passion. By Odyssey. Brought to you in part by Macy's and Geico.
It's Paul Hamilton.
That's what they called me in college. It's the bone.
He has the facts to back up his opinions.
People ask me, well, how are the Sabres are they going to win tonight? I don't have a clue.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
Attaboy. All right, Paul Hamilton with us now on the West Her hotline. Hi, Paul.
Hey, guys. How are you?
All right. Right, Bulldog?
Oh, fantastic.
Good. Beautiful day. Beautiful day.
Beautiful day is right. Yep.
So before we get into your conversations, if you will, with a couple of, I want to say, new Sabres. One is Mark Pesic, who is an old Sabre too. This Jason Garrett business, I mean, this is a subject that comes up every once in a while. Should, a reporter call a coach or something else? Here's Garrett today, an assistant with the Giants now, admonishing the media for not calling him coach. I think, wow, Paul. Have you had interactions like that? I mean, you want to talk about what you would do in a situation like this or something?
I think that's a lot of arrogance by him to insist upon that. For me, and I'm a little different when it comes this way, I was kind of brought up that way. It hasn't been that long, maybe. I always called Lindy Ruff coach. It's my way. I've always, if I'm around a coach, I call him coach. I've always been that way. I've gotten away from it a little bit just because it all of a sudden became a thing that, and to me, it was a show of respect to a coach that I would call him coach, and it was for me second nature. Mm-hmm. But again, that was just the way I handled things, and I know a lot of people don't. I don't look down on people who don't. Who use first names for coaches, and I just don't understand. I mean, Jason Garrett looks awful by doing that. I mean, come on. And again, any respect people had for him, I think you lose a lot of respect by showing that type of arrogance. If they call you coach, fine. If they don't, fine too. If you don't like it, go in private and have a fit over it. But to sit there at a press conference and show that kind of arrogance, just to me is, I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think maybe, because of my age, Paul, I would say the same as you. I don't know when I stopped doing it, but I know I definitely did it. And I think I've even done it to guys who I've been talking to that coached Owen. Just in casual kind of mm-hmm. Coach, here's the, whatever. Not even really thinking twice about it, but I'm also sure in each of those interactions at maybe other times, I refer to them by their first names. It just is not, to me, the problem is demanding it.
Right.
Is
totally
ridiculous.
Totally.
I'm not gonna look funny or down on you if you call Don Granato coach. I might look at somebody funny if they call him Donnie Meatballs in a news conference. That would be preposterous. But if you want to refer to him as coach and you work for WGR, okay, fine. I don't have an issue with it. But if he insists that everyone call him coach, now we got a problem.
Yeah, I still do it upon occasion because it just comes out, as I said, because it's kind of my way. But as I said, I've semi gotten away from it fairly recently. I would say maybe in the last 5 years or so. But you can go back, as I said, as far as Lindy Ruff. I called him coach quite often.
It's interesting how your age might shape that.
Yeah, it's just being in sports all my life through college. And I always called coach I had coach, and I think I carried that on past that. Showing a coach respect that way. As I said, it was the way I brought up, and I felt it that way. But people are brought up differently now than they were back when I was brought up and played sports and that kind of thing. And things are different.
Sometimes, if the relationship, if I can call it a relationship, like in the media, you might have regular interactions with somebody, but you don't really sort of, you're not really close at all, and you don't really sort of, you can be antagonists at times. And not that thought really has to go into it, but I would always want to use the first name. I don't see that as disrespectful. It's also sort of a way, if you're me or one of us, in a maybe even subconsciously, you're sort of getting across, I don't work for you, right? So I don't play for you. I'm not somebody that has to do what you say, something
right.
like that.
We're not on the same team.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So, it's not strategy. I'm not saying all that has gone into my thinking about this, but it sort of it feels right. You sort of establish I'm not one of your players. So, as you're saying, different ways of looking at it.
Sure, and I've never looked down on somebody who calls a coach by their first name. It's just, what I had preferred for many, many years.
Yep. Okay, so Vinny Hinestroza, if I have that right.
You do?
Let's get right to it. He has Josh Allen in fantasy.
Yeah, he does. He said he's been to Bills games, and I don't know how many, but he said, yeah, Josh Allen has always been his fantasy football quarterback, so I'm sure that endears him with Bills fans right away. So, and this happens with coaches. I mean, how many Carolina Panthers showed up under, the current administration in Buffalo, and I think we're starting to see people who have had chances with Don Granato, in this case as an assistant coach with the Chicago Blackhawks, and he said that's kind of what put him over the top, is having a 40-minute conversation with Granato just to hear what the Sabres are about, what he's going to make them about, how the team's going to play, those types of things. He said that pretty much swayed him to a point, because he was a free agent last year, signed in Florida, and it totally didn't work out. I mean, he wasn't getting any ice time. He wasn't even dressing for games. He played 9 games. He said he played 4 or 5 minutes a game, and was thankful when the Panthers traded him to Chicago, because he got a chance to show his stuff again and to be able to play a little bit. And he is what he is. I mean, I think he has a little bit higher opinion of himself than what's gonna. He was talking like a second or third line type of guy, which no, he's not. He's not in the top 6. Type of a forward, but definitely a guy that is not going to embarrass you out there, is going to kill penalties as fast, likes to be first on the puck on the forecheck type of a player, somebody that can play in your bottom 6, and you hope that maybe you can get some production out of also while he's doing it. I'm not real enthralled with the size, 5'9", but I just would like to see this team get a little bit bigger with players that can play the game, not just for the sake of getting bigger.
Right. So this is a player that's you expect squarely in the plans for the big team, right? Like the Sabres have signed so many of these 1-year $750,000 deals that it can be hard to keep track, like who's probably allocated to Rochester or earmarked for Rochester, and who has a real legit shot to be a contributor up here. Hinestroza is someone you'd expect right now to be on the Sabres, right?
Yeah, well, what I'm looking at right now is Hinestroza, Butcher, Pesek, probably Hayden, because they signed Hayden for a reason. Mm-hmm. Again, when he was signed, I said it then, and I'll say it again. I would prefer somebody who is better at hockey than him, but for a 1-year deal, just to make Dahlin a little more comfortable and Yoki Haru a little more comfortable, I'm not totally against it. But I don't have a whole lot of use for a guy who can only play 4 or 5 minutes in a game. But again, it's a 1-year thing, and people will say, well, yeah, but you could have had Nick Ritchie for around $2 million. And Nick Ritchie went to the Toronto Maple Leafs for that. He's not coming to the Buffalo Sabres for that. If he's going to come to a losing team that's, in flux right now, it's going to cost you more than if he's going to a team that is a playoff team and would be considered having a chance to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, so, you have to understand that, too, that, sure, I would rather have the guy who scored 15 goals last year, who is very, very tough and can play a good bottom six. I mean, that's the guy I have in mind. That's the type of guy I have in mind. But he's not showing up here to play for $2 million. So, you have to put that into consideration too. But if you're looking at the free agents that I think are going to be around here, I didn't mention the goaltender either. Anderson, even if Luukkonen makes a team one way or another, and then Dell, if Luukkonen's not ready, or Dell would be in Roch or sit here as a third goalie if he is.
Yeah.
I'd like for him to be better at hockey. Going back in your comments, if I'm looking for somebody to do my taxes, I'm not sure I care about how good they are at hockey. But in terms of playing for the Sabres, yes, I'm totally with you on that. I would
Did
like
Anderson? I'm sorry.
Who's better at hockey?
So Anderson talked. Did Anderson talk today too as well, or
yes,
was that yesterday?
He did.
Okay. What? Any takeaways from him at all? I know you wrote about Hinostroza, but I'm just curious, about Anderson, because he's a real curiosity to me. I mean, at this, he's 40 years old. He's had, just a fantastic career. Most of it with Ottawa. Well, most successful part of it anyway with Ottawa, where he was their number one guy for years. But what are his expectations coming in here?
Yeah, he gave some thought with his family about moving on to do something else, retirement. But they decided that. They're to a point as a family that give it another year. He still enjoys playing and is really looking forward to this opportunity. And what appealed to him is being a mentor, for Luukkonen and still getting some playing time too. But, he likes that idea of being able to pass on knowledge to younger players and help them not fall into the pitfalls that he fell into. He said, in the beginning he thought he was working hard enough, but then he got put on waivers 3 times in a year and was bouncing around teams and then wound up in the minors and found out he wasn't putting forth the correct amount of effort. And, he wants to help Luukkonen and that type of thing avoid the mistakes that he made. And one thing I told you when they signed him, they're going the Bills route. And I told you, Adams and Bean speak regularly. They're looking for not only good players but good people and guys that can come in, and you talk to people around the NHL, you won't find a better person than Anderson, and I don't think you'll find a better mentor for Luukkonen either if they're really giving serious thought, which I think they are, to him, being I almost said starting quarterback, the starting goaltender for the Buffalo Sabres. I think he is going to be given every opportunity in training camp to be able to do that. And, they're not going to rush him, I don't think. If he shows he's not ready, he's not ready, and then Dell will back up Anderson. But I don't think you can find a better person to help the kid out, especially for a year.
Paul Hamilton with us on the West Shore Hotline. Craig Anderson, a former teammate of Phil Housley's, going back to 2003 with Chicago. He was several other goalies have taken this route where they're just sort of backups, and you mentioned waivers in the league 4 or 5 years before. It was in Colorado after Florida where he really got a team. He got the team. And then Ottawa, that team, 2017, they were 1 goal from the finals.
Right.
That Ottawa team that lost to Pittsburgh. So he had a
and
really
he said
good
it's going to
there.
be a little weird, because he's had so many games against the Sabres, with Ottawa, some intense games along the way. The Sabres weren't always like this. And so he said it is going to be different to be on the other side of it. And he goes, last year he didn't get a chance to play against Ottawa because he was in this division with Washington. But, he said that's part of, the NHL and things change. And he's actually looking forward to that opportunity to play against them.
Good of you to remind us that it hasn't always been this way. And yes, 34 appearances against the Sabres, which is more than he has against any other team. All right, Mark Pysyk is in the article here. I read that. He is happy to be back?
Yeah, he is. And if you look at it, I don't think he ever got the proper opportunity. He never played a full season with the Sabres. It was always splitting time with Rochester and Buffalo. And, then his first full 82-game season was his first year with the Florida Panthers. And Tim Murray was the general manager there. He basically looked at the analytics on Pysyk and thought it was a bunch of hype and basically traded him for a guy in my mind was one of the worst defensemen to ever wear the blue and gold, and Dmitry Kulikov. He was just awful. And it just the trade at the time, I remember being at the draft, and the trade at the time, I know Matthew Collar was in our coverage back then, who is heavy into analytics, and he just about flipped out. And especially when Murray called him an analytics darling in the press conference afterwards, in a bit of a mocking fashion. And to me, it's a trade that blew up in his face totally, because Pesek had some good years in Florida until the last one, when Joel Quenneville had no room for him and made him into a winger. And Pesek actually looked forward to an opportunity here to being a defenseman again, being a full-time defenseman, because he said even a couple of games in Dallas they put him on wing last year when he signed in Dallas. So he's really looking forward to the opportunity, as he said, to reestablish himself as a full-time defenseman at the age of 29, which I think he'll be able to do. I think he's still a solid player, and can be a solid player for the Sabres.
Yep, I liked him. I'm glad he's back. The thing about this that might not be, it's being spoken of, but it's there, is like these signings, winning is really just not the point, right? I mean, winning is, for right now, maybe like in terms of Anderson or even Pesek, like you want to establish good habits and sort of maybe get some renewed credibility as an organization with guys that the pros, right? That sort of thinking. But as far as like winning games this year, the Sabres have some, if I could, you might not think this or whatever, but like they sort of have the freedom to build their roster without sort of at least focusing on that, if even worrying about that at all.
Well, I'll be surprised if, I think there are going to be some games where we're going to go down to that arena and there are going to be less than 10,000 people there, because I think people, to a point now, it's like, show me, don't talk about it. Don't talk about the long-term whatever. Show me what you can do. And, trying to develop a winning organization is not through free agency, I don't believe, at least. So, what they got in free agency is basically what I was expecting. I was expecting maybe a little more help for the bottom six, but I certainly wasn't expecting a lot of help for the top six, because in the National Hockey League, I fully believe this, to develop a team and to develop a winning team and to develop a top six, you need to do it through good drafting, and you need to do it through good trades. And you definitely don't do it through unrestricted free agency. That's when you get into goofy contracts, and then you can't make good trades because you got Jeff Skinner sitting around here for a cap number of $9 million and a contract he signed in 2019 for 8 years. I mean, and they've had those contracts around their necks since Ville Leno. I mean, for off and on. So it's, to me, it's, we'll see what they get in the Eichel trade if and when that happens.
That's it, Paul. Like the thing that had, and I think this is was or is still even a long shot, that the return in that trade would excite fans enough to sell lots of tickets, like to avoid the outcome you just sort of guessed at, 10,000 people in the building. I'm not saying like you make the right trade that changes dramatically, but I know you could hear it in my voice, and we would talk about the potential to get a couple of pieces that could be top-line difference-making type players in the NHL, if not right away, but in a year or two. I feel like that is slipping through their fingers. I'm not expecting that return in this trade anymore. It still could happen, but I'm very pessimistic about that, and I think that the only chance they had to excite their fans was to make that trade something they could really show off, and I don't know. I don't see that happening now.
I don't get optimistic or pessimistic waiting for trades, because it can change at any time. So I stay very even-keeled about that kind of thing. But as far as what Mike was talking about, winning, I mean, this year there's really not much Adams can do when Eichel wants to leave, Reinhart wants to leave, Ristolainen wants to leave, Ullmark wants to leave, and McCabe wants to leave. When all those players are tired of it here and want to leave, and and aren't willing. I mean, in McCabe's case, he wasn't willing. They tried to negotiate with him. He wasn't willing to negotiate with them. Allmark negotiated, but he wanted 6 years, 36. No. I mean, if that's what it takes to keep you here, no.
Right.
I mean, Eichel, for numerous reasons, doesn't want to be here. Reinhart, rightfully so, felt snubbed because he never got a long-term offer while he's watching Jeff Skinner sign contracts and everybody else, and he's got to sign a 1 or 2 year deal. Well, apparently the Sabres approached him for a long-term deal in Adams' case this year. I mean, you can't blame Adams for the past, but he tried, and Reinhart just is tired of it and said, no, I'm not going to sign that here. You know, you could have kept him for 1 more year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. So, again, you're behind the 8 ball there. So when you're in a position where all those players are basically leaving, you're going to have a year or two. And it's unfortunate for the fans because the fans are tired of it. It's already gone 10 years, and now they got to go through at least 2 years minimum. And that's minimum, I think, of depending on what the return is for Eichel of more of this. But when your best players just don't want to be here around here anymore and they hold the hammer a little bit where you just can't keep them, I mean, that's the situation they're in. So now they basically have a young nucleus of some players, and they've got Power, I think, is going to be a good addition to them eventually, but they basically have to start with those guys and build with those guys and try to build around that and move forward with that. But it's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, like that's all the case. And so, again, like if you're the GM or a fan or anybody, what's reasonable to expect for this season? I mean, that talking about the signings they've made and so on, probably not a lot. You want to pay for it, for tickets. That's up to you. You never know, but kind of feels that way. So it's just like, all right, well, what are your objectives as a GM? Really, like you don't need your veteran signings to elevate you, really. Like at least in the short term, you don't need that.
Right. You just need them to come here and be pros
and get you through it.
Right. And not be upset about the situation and not be too dragged down by the losing that almost inevitably is going to come.
And you've got a couple of very interesting young players now. You might want to have 2 more, say, after Eichel. Mm-hmm. And then next year you can have a couple more, and then you can be something. And we'll see what kind of coaching they get. And if they can, we've seen it before in Sabres past where, like, they're not good yet, but you can sort of smell it, right? You can sort of sense, like, this, all right, this could get interesting. And I think fans in this town would respond to that. It's not there yet.
And I look at guys like Jack Quinn and Luukkonen in goal. I mean, they've expected him basically to be the goaltender for a couple of years now. That's going to be the future of the goaltender. And Jack Quinn, I mean, this is a guy that scored goals at every level and, is a number 1 pick that I think they're looking forward to and also could do big things for them, not next year, but in the next year or two, and to be able to fill in and have an opportunity to play and opportunity to maybe thrive. I don't think this is the year, but those are 2 guys especially that I look at. And even the kid at the University of Minnesota, Johnson, really progressed well as a defenseman last year. And, I think is also a guy, in addition to Power, that they can look at the blue line. And that's just talking about some youngsters. But again, we just keep getting back to this year. That's not going to help them this year.
Right.
Paul, thanks.
Yep. Take care, guys.
All right. Great job. Paul Hamilton on our West Her Hotline, and his appearances on WGR are brought to you by Equitable Advisors. Planning for your future is about more than just money. Let Equitable be your guide. And by Relax Honda. Relax. We got this.
John Clayton joins us. We'll find out how his summer has been going after the update. Mike Shope and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Hey, we're the hosts of Pod Save America. Every week we break down the political news that makes us laugh, cry, and scream into the void with a conversation that's entertaining, informative, and hopefully useful.
We try to be serious without taking ourselves too seriously because we all have to stay in the fight. Democracy is under attack, and there's a whole right-wing machine that's counting on the rest of us to give up and check out, and we can't let them win.
So join us. New episodes of Pod Save America drop Mondays and Thursdays. Listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's up, everyone? I'm Carmelo Anthony. And while you may know me as a basketball player, there's a whole lot more I'm ready to talk about. That's why I started What's in Your Glass, a show where we'll sit down for a glass of wine and a conversation with the biggest names in sports, music, media, and entertainment. Listen and follow What's in Your Glass, a presentation of Cadence 13 and Creative 7 with me, Carmelo Anthony, now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Odyssey now has hundreds of new exclusive music stations for you to discover your new summer soundtrack.
Get moving with worthy workouts for a cardio sesh fueled by today's top artists.
Hanging with your crew? Throw it back with Picnic Party for old school jams for your cookout.
Or sail away with Odyssey's new yacht rock station, Jugger Yacht.
There are hundreds of new exclusive stations to check out today.
For summer barbecues,
road trips,
or relaxing poolside.
For every move, every interest, every passion. By Odyssey.